What's up, humans, and welcome to a new Psicoactivo. Happy Thursday night, everybody. It's about to be midnight here. I have a trip to make tomorrow, so I'm not going to be available all day, so I'm doing videos right now. So, first of all, before I begin today's video, I want to ask you guys, and I'm going to do it at the beginning, to please, if you like the content you see, I'm going to ask you to like, share, hype, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell icon. That's all you need to do to help us, really, and it really is what helps us the most. But if you want to support the channel in other ways, there's a few links down there you can choose from. You can become a member on YouTube. You can become a member on the Patreon page, which I just launched 2 days ago. You can be there for free as well. There are free subscriptions on the Patreon page, or you can support us through KGRA. Anything you choose to do is always appreciated. So thank you. So in today's video, first of all, I want to talk about something that I've been wanting to talk about for a while, since the Age of Disclosure documentary movie came out. It's gotten all over the place. It's been on all mainstream media. Danfire has done a really good job with the marketing of this film and with the reach. And I'm sure that there's a lot of people that saw this film for the first time. So this goes to all of you. First of all, hi, my name is Pavel. I'm a sports journalist with 14 years in the industry of sports journalism of experience. In 2021, I opened this podcast. Initially, I wanted to talk about my experiences with psychedelics and how it changed me fundamentally in many ways. I started studying more of consciousness, and that's when I realized that consciousness was linked to some part of the phenomenon. And one of the people that appears in that film, I saw one of his interviews with Joe Rogan. His name is David Fravor. It's the guy that chased the famous Tic Tac in 2004. He's in the film. When I saw that, I started becoming way more interested in UFOs than I was before. But I've always been interested, since the 90s at least. So you saw the movie, you saw the militarized version and more politics version of the film. So this story of Age of Disclosure is only the government militarized part of the story. There is much more to this entire topic that meets the eye, and it encompasses many areas. And first of all, we got to start by talking about some of the stuff that seems to be happening besides what you saw in the film. What you saw in the film is that there are objects in the sky that we cannot identify, that the government already agreed that they are real. And there is some sort of an arms race because there has been a crash retrieval operation since the 40s. And there is sort of an arms race for technology out of these crashes between at least China, Russia, and the US. So that's the militarized version, yeah? What they didn't discuss are other things that are happening. As it turns out, the world is much weirder than a lot of us thought. These phenomena seem to be happening and have been happening for at least 2,000 years or more. So the ones that seem to be real, okay, are the abduction phenomenon, which is, I think, one of the most difficult topics to take on. That seems to be happening, which is hard to talk about, I know, but it seems to be happening. And it has happened at least since the 50s or 60s. The most famous case is Betty and Barney Hill. Look it up. In fact, Obama is producing a series or a film, I think, for Netflix about that story, with Demi Moore and Coleman Domingo starring in the film as Betty and Barney Hill. And coincidentally, another thing that did happen was that President Barack Obama said this, and he actually said this.
I'm actually being serious here, is that there's footage and records of objects in the skies that we don't know exactly what they are. We can't explain how they moved, their trajectory. They did not have an easily explainable pattern. And so, I think that people still take seriously trying to investigate and figure out what that is.
So that same guy that was totally being serious there, as he said it himself, is producing a film about abductions. Abductions seem to be real and they seem to be happening to people. We still don't know if they're actual physical abductions, but there are implants that have been found allegedly in some of these people. So it is a physical phenomenon. So that seems to be real. I know, daunting, sorry, but this case also seems to be real. It happened in the 90s. It happened in Zimbabwe at a school called Ariel. And a bunch of kids reported that during recess, I think, or a lunch break, a craft landed and two beings stepped out of the craft and they telepathically communicated with these beings. And this is where you will find one of the most famous names in ufology, which is Dr. John Mack from Harvard. He was a psychologist who, when this case happened, he went there to Zimbabwe to interview these kids. And this is a small clip from those interviews of Dr. John Mack asking the kids, what did they experience? So here it is.
Imagine is his reason for visiting Earth.
I think it's about something that's going to happen.
Something that's going to happen?
Yes.
Like what?
There's pollution or something.
Pollution?
Yes.
And how did he get that idea of pollution across to you?
The way you're staring.
The way he was staring?
Yes.
Somehow there was a message about pollution from the way he was staring?
Yes. I think they want people to know that we're actually making harm on this world and we mustn't get too technologized.
How did that get communicated to you?
I don't know.
But somehow it did, isn't
Yeah, it came through my head.
Through your head? Did it, through words or?
My conscience, I think.
Your what?
My conscience.
It came to you through your conscience told you?
Yeah.
I mean, while you were in contact with the being, you mean, or
while the being was looking at me.
While it was looking at you.
It was like this lake of calmness in his eyes. I was compelled to look at him. It wasn't like I wanted to look away from him. Time became very still and very bizarre. In my mind, technology and not good feelings about technology either. It was like technology was a bad, dirty word. I think that he was saying to me, beware of the technology, don't go into it too heavy because it's not going to be good for you. It was only when I was looking at him and his face and his eyes that I got that. As soon as I looked away from him, that's when all of reality and everything that was happening came back too. And that's when I realized that something really strange is happening here.
You see that shape? It's the same consistency. These gray beings, those seem to be real.
It's fascinating. This was imagery coming through for them communicating, but it's done through right in your brain.
You were saying that you thought that they maybe were trying to tell us something, like about the future. Can you say more what your thought is, or what was it like?
It was like in the world, all the trees will just go down and there will be no air and people will be dying.
So this is, to me, when I saw this, it was really shocking and hard to accept in many ways because how could children just like tell the very same story? Because after it happened, the teacher thought that they were lying. So she separated them and she made them draw what they saw after they explained to her what they saw. And she separated them in order to not copy each other. And everyone drew something very similar, something like this little guy right here. So that seems to be real. And another thing that seems to be real is psi phenomena. And one of the people that appeared in the film is Dr. Hal Puthoff. Dr. Puthoff also ran what was known as Project Stargate, which is the remote viewing program. Actually, in Amazon Prime, there's a really, really good documentary called, I think it's Third Eye Spies, which tells a story about the remote viewing program. And remote viewing was used by the government in order to do many different unbelievable things, like finding a plane by just giving the remote viewer coordinates. There's record of President Jimmy Carter talking about this, and this is completely real.
Is at one time we had a small plane go down somewhere in Africa. We needed very much to find out where that plane had crashed, and we were not able to find it by surveillance from our satellites. So the director of the CIA, he was also director of all the intelligence agencies, heard about a woman in California that was a medium, and he contacted her, and she gave him the latitude and longitude of the plane's whereabouts. And the next time one of our space satellites went over that area, we located the plane where she said it was.
Psi phenomena ranges from precognition, from telepathy, what is known as telepathy, because we don't know exactly what it is, telekinesis, manifestation, and it all ranges from intuition. And this is where we get to a concept that you're going to be exposed to for a while, which is the experiencers. Experiencers are people that have been through different types of anomalous experiences that range from seeing a UFO in the sky, having an abductions experience, having a contact experience. By the way, another one of the shapes that seems to be reported also very consistently are shadow beings. That's another one. So there's also experiencers who showcase some type of psi phenomena as well. That seems to be real. And last year, a podcast came out called the Telepathy Tapes. And that seems to have caused quite a ruckus within the scientific community and the assisted education community for autistic children, which got really angry at Kai Dickens and Dr. Powell's work on the telepathy tapes. But there is a lot of evidence for a lot of the things that happen. And the stigma is really strong there. And there's a lot of resistance. So psi phenomena seems to be real. Dr. Hal Puthoff, besides what he spoke about within the physics realm about UFOs and all that, he also investigated thoroughly at Stargate about psi phenomena in general. And there's a lot of stuff that has happened. There's the Monroe Institute. There's the concept of the super experiencer, which is coined by Dr. Sean Esbjorn Hargens, who talks about the super experiencers. He thinks that, for example, a gentleman by the name of Chris Bledsoe is a super experiencer. Bledsoe has a book called UFO of God, where he talks about really wild experience with orbs and beings of light, and it gets really wild. It has garnered a lot of attention, and there's a lot of religious overlap with the story of Chris Bledsoe because of some lady that he allegedly encountered a couple of times. So you can see how wide-ranging this topic is. In the nuts and bolts department, there is this dilemma, which is that
ask yourself, what Pandora's box would a new physical insight potentially open? The role of aerospace companies as holders of potentially basic scientific knowledge not shared with the academic world. Is it possible? It seems very wrong to me.
Maybe wrong, but it's true.
It is true. You believe it's true.
Yeah, I know it's true.
You know that there's physics knowledge held by aerospace companies that is not
There
known.
certainly is materials knowledge.
Materials, well, okay, material
which
science.
involves topological physics or whatever.
Okay. But fundamental physics as opposed to, condensed matter or...
Right. Certainly aerospace corporations have knowledge in the UAP area that specifically are sequestered against FOIA.
Oh,
because of proprietary
I appreciate
labels, which the whole thing was set up to be that way, on purpose.
right. But the idea that there would be fundamental physics knowledge that would be housed in an aerospace company and not shared with the physics community There is no evidence of that.
No evidence for it, not that I know of.
And I wouldn't.
That doesn't mean it's not the case, but
that would be this crazy, egregious.
It would change our entire concept of who we are if somebody kept fundamental physics secret in the years since we became capable of exploding fusion devices. Right. I would grab a pitchfork and a tiki torch, and I would march on the National Science Foundation. You have to ask.
So this is one of the parts of the film that is discussed in the film, and I wanted to show you that clip from American Alchemy. That is Eric Weinstein. He is a mathematician who's very famous. He's been on Rogan a bunch of times. He's been all over, and he's really good friends with Jesse. And Jesse, a few years ago, arranged sort of like a meeting between him and Dr. Hal Puthoff, who appears in the movie. So that's one of the fears that could be one of the reasons why there is so much pushback in the scientific community. The scientific community is being challenged on another front by something that also seems to be real. And I know that there's going to be a lot of people that don't like what I say. I don't really care. I've been covering this for a while. This seems to be real. That is called a tridactyl. And if you saw an episode on Jesse Michaels' American Alchemy, or if you saw Rogan talking about it, or if you saw it on the news, if you're from Latin America and you've been seeing Jaime Maussan talking about this, these specimens were found in Peru near the Nazca and Palpa regions. They feature tridactyl hands and feet without any type of tampering with the feet and the hands. They seem to have morphological coherence. Some of them are carbon dated to 1700 years old, and other ones are 1,000 years old. There's a couple of sets of hands that are really long that they're carbon dated to 6,000 years old. And they were found in the same spot, all of them. That seems to be the case. That's another thing that seems to be real. So as you can tell, and I keep telling you, it keeps getting weirder and weirder. As Terence McKenna said,
it's only going to get weirder. The level of contradiction is going to rise excruciatingly, even beyond the excruciating present levels of contradiction. So I think it's just going to get weirder and weirder and weirder, and finally it's going to be so weird that people are going to have to talk about how weird it is. And at that point, novelty theory can come out of the woods, because eventually people are going to say, what the hell is going on? It's just too nuts. It's not enough to say it's nuts. You have to explain why it's so nuts. I look for the invention of artificial life, the cloning of human beings, possible contact with extraterrestrials, possible human immortality, and at the same time, appalling acts of brutality, genocide, race baiting, homophobia, famine, starvation, because the systems which are in place to keep the world sane are utterly inadequate to the forces that have been unleashed. The collapse of the socialist world, the rise of the internet, these are changes so immense, nobody could imagine them ever happening. And now that they have happened, nobody even bothers to mention what a big deal it is. The mushroom said to me once, it said, this is what it's like when a species prepares to depart for the stars. You don't depart for the stars under calm and orderly conditions. It's a fire in a madhouse. And that's what we have, the fire in the madhouse at the end of time. This is what it's like when a species prepares to move on to the next dimension. The entire destiny of all life on the planet is tied up in this. We are not acting for ourselves or from ourselves. We happen to be the point species on a transformation that will affect every living organism on this planet at its conclusion.
So from the film, there is one name that I do want to highlight. It's actually two names, but these are absentees from the film. One of them is still alive, the other one isn't. But these two are considered the fathers of ufology, as you know it. And one of them could have been in the film. I thought he was going to be in the film, and he wasn't. His name is Dr. Jacques Vallée. And the other person I'm going to talk about is the other gentleman that appears in this picture. His name is John Keel. They're both very brilliant people, and they have different theories, yet kind of similar too, about what the phenomenon is. They both agree, I think, that the phenomenon, for some reason, plays with your perception. Dr. Jacques Vallée has been involved in the recent and modern UFO disclosure movement, sort of organized alongside the government as well. He worked for a project called BASS that was funded by billionaire Robert Bigelow, who also has had a place called Skinwalker Ranch. That's another rabbit hole that wasn't mentioned in the film either, and it should be, I think, because there's a lot of weird stuff happening there too. But these two guys are, to me, how you could start to introduce ufology to people. They would have to read the work of these two gentlemen, because they're the ones who like set the stage to at least try and understand what the phenomenon is. John Keel sadly is no longer with us, but this is a video of him talking about the phenomenon in general, and I just want you to listen to what he has to say.
It seemed very Fortean to some of you, but everything is interrelated. And the more we study history and the more we study current events, we see that all of these things are linked together in strange ways. That the UFOs, as most of you know who have read my books, I don't think they're extraterrestrial at all. I think they're definitely tied to the human race, and that they react to things that are happening to the human race. I don't think they're vehicles. I think sometimes people see what appears to be vehicles, but they're really hallucinatory. And no matter how reliable the witness is, what they see can be questioned. The same is true in many of our Bigfoot cases and the strange monster cases, that the people see some image that's planted in their mind, and the creature itself probably doesn't exist at all, at least not as the creature that's seen. When I was in India, I was impressed at the number of people who were seeing the Indian gods, multi-armed gods and all. Whatever your belief is, these manifestations are going to assume that form.
So Jean Keel has plenty of books. He wrote a bunch. He wrote, I think his magnum opus is called Operation Trojan Horse. I would recommend it highly. The Eighth Tower, I would recommend highly. The Mothman Prophecies, I would recommend highly. And he wrote a bunch of small stories as well. But the most important work that he did, I think, was going around the country talking to people who had experiences of all kinds, of all ranges. He didn't shy away from studying cryptids, and he was the person who coined the term Men in Black. That's him. So for me, Jean Keel has this concept. And I think that if you want to learn more about the history of this topic, which has a lot of different alternatives and a lot of different roads to go down, he would be arguably the best option to try and learn the more educated side of the topic, I think. Keel was judged by a lot of people because he never really married to the extraterrestrial hypothesis. He didn't say it was not real. He just was open to exploring other possibilities, and for that, I will always be grateful to him. And I think Dr. Jacques Vallée is also a central part of this story, because he was Dr. J. Allen Hynek's main collaborator. If you guys don't know, he's the one who opened Project Blue Book from the government back in the day to study UFOs. That was the official government UFO program. And Jacques was very young at the time. Jacques was he was one of the people who co-invented the precursor of the internet. That was him. This is him when he was young, explaining what UFOs were and what the phenomenon is.
a technology, but there are really, around the technology, there are a number of psychological, and if you will, even, let's use the word psychic effects associated with it. One of the most important findings that has been made about this phenomenon is that it is global in scope. In other words, it doesn't belong to the French or the Americans or the British. There have been waves of sightings, usually lasting about a few weeks or a month and a half, over in very concentrated fashions in certain areas of the world. There have been such waves in Western Europe in 1954, for example. In this country in 1947, we know of waves in the Soviet Union, in China, in Australia, especially in Western Australia. And what is typical about these waves is that the people from all these different cultures around the world are describing the same thing in their own terms. What they are describing is an object that seems to be able to maneuver, it seems to be a technology, seems to come to the ground and leave traces. And there have been rings, especially, that have been found, burned circles that have been found very commonly in Australia that are absolutely identical to things that have been catalogued in this country, in France. There is now a catalogue of such traces that encompasses more than 1,000 sightings.
These two guys seem to be the most important names in ufology, in my opinion. Dr. Jacques Vallée also is a prolific author. He wrote The Invisible College, Passport to Magonia, which I think it's one of the most important books. But for me, the most important collection, he wrote it. It's 6 books. They're called Forbidden Science, volumes 1 through 6. The most recent one just came out this year. And essentially, Dr. Jacques Vallée tells you the real history of this movement in ufology since he started investigating UFOs. So if you really want to learn about this topic thoroughly and with all the flaws and all the different avenues that exist, Dr. Jacques Vallée's Forbidden Science could be a really good alternative. Although this topic is so vast, because there's ancient history also involved that we need to look into. There's a lot of things that are happening. But if you really want to have a proper introduction to what this is, this vast topic of phenomenology, because that's what this is, you got to read these two. I would recommend you start with those. I'm going to leave links in the description for whatever I can find about them, but I think this is a good way to try to tackle a little better what Age of Disclosure wanted to explain. And I think the main goal of Age of Disclosure was just to get people interested in the topic. And now that they are coming here and seeing this new fire hose of information, I think it's a good idea to try and get them some recommendations on where to start. And this is what I recommend. I'm going to show you one last clip before I leave of Dr. Jacques Vallée again in a more recent interview for the Soul Foundation. And you can see Dr. Hal Puthoff there as well. So here it is.
Most interested in today is to continue to specialize in the witnesses. The witnesses are hurt by this.
And this is why I said that experiencers are the most important aspect of this. Because this includes abductions, contact experiencers, and other types of experiences that have this effect that Dr. Jacques Vallée is about to convey.
They need advances in therapy. And what I mean is in the very structures of science and support, psychological support, and so on. And they need recognition, and they need sort of social support, which sometimes is quite extreme. I mean, anyone who has been surprised by the phenomenon is, to some extent, separated from the rest of society by the fact that he or she has had that experience. And we've done a very poor job of helping these people, helping them communicate with their environment.
And this is where I come to my main case and my experience, because for the longest time, I had really weird experiences growing up that go back even before I started doing psychedelics, which is a major part of my experiences as well. But before that, I had already had really strange experiences. And for the longest time, I thought because of the social constructs that existed in my environment, I thought that I was not okay in the brain, that I was maybe prone to go to a mental hospital and that I was crazy essentially. And I believed that for many years. Then, when I started doing my research properly, I realized that there's way more people that have experienced something strange in their life than there are those who haven't. And the strangeness is like ranges from a wide variety of things that have happened to people. And it's really weird shit. And it's been happening forever. And I just can't even imagine what people who went through actual contact experiences or even abduction experiences have gone through. The experiences that I had, which were psi phenomena experiences and a near death experience, I think were completely paradigm shifting for me. They completely changed my life forever. I can't even imagine what an actual physical event like that would have as an effect on someone. And Dr. Jacques Vallée is completely spot on here. We need better understanding of people who go through these experiences instead of just labeling them as not sane. That is really fucked up. And the stigma is still there. There's still a lot of people that are really, really skeptical. And I get it. I mean, if you never experience anything in your life and you hear these stories, the vast majority of people are just skeptical, though. But there are like a small number of people who do this on purpose to just create confusion and create a void of information. And it becomes really frustrating sometimes. But the other part that I wanted to mention before I leave is that these two guys, Jacques Vallée and John Keel, are two people who I saw with, his name is Jacobo Greenberg. And that's how I got hooked in the topic, because of him. When I saw him attending conferences back in the 80s with Dr. Jacques Vallée, there's another picture with John Keel where Jacobo is in the bottom right corner of the image. I found out that these guys during that time were attending conferences in many different places around the world where they met to talk about phenomena in general. There were people who talked about ancient civilizations. Jacobo spoke about consciousness, which seems to be at the core of all of this. Jacques Vallée was a ufologist. There was John Keel there. There was another gentleman by the name of Andrea Pucharic, who was part of Stargate for a little while. There was Zacharias Sitchin, who famously wrote the book about the Anunnaki, which you've probably seen on History Channel. And there's a wide range. And by 1985, they had already been doing conferences for a full century. I'm not joking. So there seems to be like a revival of all of this. During one of those conferences, John Keel himself was quoted saying that by the end of the millennia, he missed by a couple decades though, magic was making a comeback, he said. And right now, there's a lot of stuff that is happening around the world that seems to be that prediction becoming a reality. That prediction from Jean Keel. I go back to this. So I would start with them, really. And the film, yeah, it shows you just a part of what is happening. But I already told you other stuff that seems to also be happening. And it goes much deeper. I'm not going through everything, but I think this is a decent start. That's it for me today on this video, but I'll see you guys in the next one. Remember, stay curious and inquisitive like Dr. Jacques Vallée and John Keel. Always. Bye.